think one of the things that I valued the most this year that we did was just taking the time to ask you to do some self-evaluation before the Lord and to take some steps of faith to face some of those places in your life that you know are weak, that you know are painful, that you know maybe are sinful, that you know were hard just to put on paper. And obviously we didn't put our names to it, but we passed those things out to everybody. And you have all entrusted those things about you to other people in this room. I love that. Even though we don't know who you are, I love that. Because that's kind of the first step. It's acknowledgement, and it's a willingness to say, not only do I see this in my life, but I need some help. I need somebody praying for that as well. So let me say thanks for praying, because I think that's important. And I want to say this now because even though our end of the year celebration is going to involve the orchestra and other worship team members that serve on Saturdays and stuff, they haven't done any of this. So I'm going to take the time now to say thank you for this because I think it's really important. I really believe when we recognize those places in our lives where we feel perhaps the most alone, as I think through some of the things you wrote, most misunderstood. Some of you probably feel the most hidden things in your life, things that isolated you or you feel isolated in. The painful things. Those are the things that only the Lord is going to be able to work and change in you. Because if you try and do it, you'll be writing those same things down next year. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, well, maybe not obviously, I think we're wired. I think God created you to be in relationship with Him. But I think He created you to seek relationship even beyond Him, especially within the church, the people of God. I really do. I think that's something that you are, if you're kind of following the created order and it's not as tainted by sin as we are, obviously. We need to give ourselves to each other as well as to the Lord. And I think it's easier to do it with the Lord because He knows you already. It's a little, you take steps to let yourself known to other people. So I really do feel that it's been kind of a first step for some of you. The one thing I wanted to really kind of get away from, when you start to recognize the things that hold you back, the things that are, are just continually dragging you down, it's easy to feel shame about those things. Because as Christians, I'm not supposed to be dealing with this. I'm not supposed to have this in my life. And yet you wrote it on a piece of paper. That's me. And it's easy to feel shame about that. The only way that you get rid of shame is if you stop hiding it. You share it with somebody. Because now it's not a secret. Now, even though you did that anonymously, that's a first step. And maybe some of you will be able to, at some point, have a relationship with somebody within the body of Christ where you can share that. And I encourage that within the body of Christ. Because outside the body of Christ, they're not looking to Christ as the answer. Christ is the answer. He is the one who understands you. He'll always love you. He'll always bring you back. He'll always say, I know that. And he'll look you in the face and say, you are exactly where I knew you would be today in this walk of faith. And that will never change because He will never turn away from that. But, loved ones, you're not alone in this. This has been biblical history. These are people in the Bible have done this all along. They've all faced those moments of despair, if you will. I just started looking at a couple of them. Job, obviously feeling tragic loss in his life. And also feeling the silence of God in his life, right? He says, I loathe my life. I would not live forever. Leave me alone. My days are a breath. Do you hear just the helplessness of that, right? Elijah, he was being chased after doing all that he did. He journeys into the wilderness, comes, sits down under a broom tree, and he asks that he might die. That's serious, folks, right? He says, it is enough, Lord. Take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers. It's only small steps sometimes between those areas where you are ashamed of things that are going on in your life, where you start feeling that you're a burden to other people, where you start questioning, I don't think I'm ever going to really believe that I'm saved, when you start embracing some of those same kinds of feelings that these people in the Bible, people who did powerful things, worked mighty miracles like Elijah, are saying, I want to die. After Saul died, Jonathan, who had a pretty amazing life in between loving his brother David and trying to honor his father, when he recognizes his father is dead, he says, stand beside me, he says to his armor bearer, stand beside me and kill me, for anguish has seized me, and yet my life still lingers. I've talked to people at this church who have this same kind of feeling. And obviously Jonah, for a whole nother reason, misplaced anger and resentment that he didn't get his way. But we deal with that, don't we, sometimes? He says, oh Lord, please take my life from me. Right? It's better for me to die than to live. So I say that not to depress you. What I say that for is to say, hey, you're just like the people in the Bible. And God put them in the Bible for a reason, so that you would recognize that they went to God. They went to God. They did business with God, and they made that happen. God still had mercy on them because he still had his purpose to fulfill through them. He has his purpose to fulfill through you. And that's why we stand in prayer for one another. That's my hope, and that you will continue to do that. Apostle Paul, same thing, 2 Corinthians. We were so utterly burdened beyond our strength, ever been beyond your strength, that we despaired of life itself. That word despair means he lost hope. He had lost all hope. Okay? But that was to make us rely not on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. So, I mean, some of you are in pretty sticky situations right now in your life, but the question is, can you remember to make us rely not on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead? He delivered us, Paul goes on to say, from deadly peril, and he will deliver us. I like that. He delivered us, and he will deliver us. Amen. Right? He knew it, but didn't make it any easier because he was going through it, right? But he says to the people around him, you also must help us by prayer, so that many will give thanks on our behalf. And that's why you pray for each other. That's why we've spent this year trying to lift each other up that way. God takes us beyond our strength, but not beyond his strength. Do you believe that? It's the only way you can understand a verse like 1 Corinthians 10:13. God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. How many of you have ever felt like you've gone beyond your ability? I have, all the time, right? The Lord is your way of escape. That's why he says he will provide the way of escape. He is the way of escape. That's the only way you're going to get through it, with the Lord. He is your endurance, that you may be able to endure it. Not get you out of it, endure it. Only in the power of the Spirit living in you will you find the faith, the strength, and the endurance to get through. And that's how you have to embrace a verse like that. And if you don't, then you've forgotten the verse that comes immediately before it. Because that's where Paul said, let anyone who thinks that he stands take heed lest he fall. That's a great way to remember that next verse that everybody claims that I can handle this, God's with me. No, you can't, but God can, and he's going to get you through. So I guess what I'm saying here, I don't know why I went through it for so long, but even though we won't be meeting, don't stop praying for the person you've got, because they're depending on you. They're depending on you. And again, I don't know how many of you feel like maybe you've had a breakthrough with some of the things that you wrote on that piece of paper. I just want to thank you for writing those things on a piece of paper. And I hope that perhaps next year when we come back again, and we do it again, and we will, that it may be something different. If it's the same thing, that's okay too, because it's a process, right? The one thing I don't want you to do, even though we don't meet here on Thursday, is isolate yourself from the church. I know there's some people in this choir that I don't see a lot on weekends unless the choir's in. But I don't go on Saturday all the time either, so maybe some of you go on Saturday too. But some of you are in ABFs, some of you are in grace groups. You all need to be in worship. You all need just even the encouragement of the body of Christ gathering together and praising the Lord and hearing the word taught. You need that. Don't ever forsake that. Because that's what God has given you for strength. That is how you are going to endure, no matter how it changes or how you feel about it. You need this place, and we need you in this place, right? Is it good that we remind ourselves of this?
It is.
Good, you knew the line.